ConductorPro, Deployment and Asset Management. Once your show is complete, you can download your audio, animation, logic, and lighting data into the onboard storage of a Pro Commander device. This tutorial explores building out the show hierarchy, managing the show assets, and deploying both locally to a microSD or SD card reader, or via the network connection you're using for programming. Once deployed, you'll also learn how to manage ongoing projects through individual deployment projects within Conductor. This tutorial is considered intermediate and recommended to users who have already had success in creating a show profile.
This new feature takes us from the original export file function that would build a card image containing a control.ini, shows folder, and audio folder to our new 2.0 structure that allows for network deployment and management of show assets. This also allows for on-the-fly editing of the control.ini over the network, as well as additional files such as the variables.csv or other related show information. For this example, we've simply loaded two shows into ConductorPro, Show 1 and Show 2, and have a local folder on this desktop for the purpose of deployment. This Pro Commander is 10.0.0.101 with the port of 5555. Show 2, we actually have these 8 channels. However, in Show 1, if we pull up Show 1, you would see that we just have 4 channels so that we can diagnose this particular difference between Show 1 and Show 2. Once I have my shows finished and recorded, and both are saved in ConductorPro, remember that saving is indicated by the absence of an asterisk next to the show name, we'll then move over to the new Deployment tab. Please note this Deployment tab is only available in ConductorPro versions 2.0.4737 or newer. You also must have firmware version 2.53 or newer on your Waggle Pro Commander device. Upload to the card is available on all Generation 2 devices for Waggle, and again, 2.0.4737 or newer for ConductorPro. In order to create this deployment package, we first want to start by creating a new package container. Within this ConductorPro setup, we can have multiple deployment packages for different shows, different Pro Commanders on your network, or different versions or iterations of the same show. For this, I'm going to create a new deployment package, which I'll call Package 1. This does still save as the export project format C1PRJ that is compatible with legacy projects. So here you'll notice we have this simple deployment package. The next thing we want to do is load both of our show files, the show1.hfx and the show2.hfx, into this particular window. Now you'll notice it still gives me a question mark because we still do not have all the rest of the pertinent information required to export this to a folder or directly to the device. In here, we have the same features we've always had in Conductor and a few new ones. We can convert the audio, auto start, select a target run mode, loop the show, sync to SMPTE timecode. If this is selected, we have the option of our standard frame rates, or give it a start condition. If we have a start condition, such as a remote, infrared remote, time, that's time from startup, or an absolute time, or the comparable of a variable to a constant or to another variable value, we can start a show with these particular instances. Please note that in this version and newer, as well as in newer versions of Waggle Hardware Configurator, you do have the ability to edit this directly in the INI editor in these programs after the fact. You don't actually have to do it in this particular window. However, we recommend at least defining the show slots here, as well as a basic start condition for testing. The show number on the card is related to this index right here, and the file path is actually in this location. We do have some more settings depending on the project, such as the audio quality or other things that may be pertinent to your specific installation. Once we have this set up, we want to go ahead and save this project. The next thing we want to do is add, if we want to do the network upload, a specific device that is available on our network at 10.0.0.101. What makes this feature extremely powerful is the ability to connect to multiple Pro Commanders or Pro I/O devices supporting this feature over the network through these selections of these always active packages that are here on the left side. So if I had, for example, 5 or 6 different Pro commanders and sets of projects or deployments, I would have the ability to, on the fly, choose which Pro commander this particular set of show instances would connect to. Here, I'll select Pro Commander 2 and hit OK. Additionally, I want to create a redundant local folder for the export project. We recommend you always do this for the purpose of tracking revisions and changes locally on your computer. The network upload could have the potential to fail, and this would give you a local backup if you had to resend. At this point, we also have the ability to customize the control.ini. We have what's auto-generated from the section above, our local copy stored in this deployment folder here, and of course, any new information that we want to add. In this case, I'm going to add a message on startup that just says, print on the message display for 2 seconds, hello world. And this gets injected into my already existing project conductor-driven control.ini export. As we do different revisions, we'll see a local copy as well as any new changes that we would actually apply prior to download. There is also a new comment section where we can add comments to the control.ini that are not executed on startup. We do recommend, however, keeping these comments as a minimum or providing them in a separate file where possible. Once we have this complete, we have a button here for deploy. Now we'll come back to this after we do our initial deployment, but notice that we can do automatic selection, force a full update of all timeline files, control INI files, and audio files, or we can simply overwrite the INI only. Please note that in ConductorPro, a force reboot is required whenever the INI is actually changed or updated. Of course, we do want to send a backup to the package folder as well, just so we have some redundancy and data integrity. I'm going to go ahead and hit deploy, and you'll see this message here that says deployment in process. I have an error that did allow us to copy it to the local deployment. It said timeout waiting for device answer. However, let's check our firmware. And we do have 2.53. So let's go back under our devices since we've captured this error. 253, so we should not be having any difficulty connecting to this device. If you have any difficulty connecting or uploading, we do recommend that you automatically check the firewall settings for your Windows computers. We do require that the firewall is turned off or an exception is made that allows ConductorPro and Waggle Hardware Configurator to upload and download to the card. This is an inbound and outbound firewall rule, or again, turning off the Windows firewall will assist in this. Once we've solved this issue, which in our case was the firewall being turned on and an IP conflict on our network, you can go back to the deployment function here and retry the deploy. As you can see now it is working. It is uploading the show to 10.0.0.101. Depending on the length of your show, this may take several minutes, so we'll go ahead and skip ahead. Alternatively, if you want to upload files directly from Waggle Hardware Configurator, you can start by listing any files on the card. This shows that the files are actually not present on this SD card and that it is blank. I can send a simple directory by just going to my test deployment folder, going to my export file, and it does send all the files up directly. Now when I relist, I see the control.ini, the show mapping, and my 2 show folders that were here. This is no different than what's actually happening in ConductorPro, except that it does give me a complete breakdown of the file send commands that I can do. For example, if I wanted to just manually force up a single file, it may or may not be easier to do directly in Configurator. I can, however, edit the control.ini even without having a full license of Conductor in front of me. In this case, local copy and remote copy. And of course, I can save, load from file, push up, push down, erase from the device, or load from the device as we just did. Additionally, I can edit any variable labels if a CSV does exist on the card. I have a local copy and a remote copy that does allow me to edit, save, push, and pull these variables from the Pro Commander. In most cases, during the editing of your show, the best thing to do is to actually use the deployment in ConductorPro for several reasons. First, if you notice here, we've done our deployment, everything is cleared out, and I've gone back into Conductor for the second time. If I go back to my timeline, and I were to load show 2 again, and I make individual changes to these points or data sets, notice it's telling me to save up here. I'm going to go ahead and save here. But when I go back to deployment, it already knows that this is dirty. What we mean is that the file here is out of date and it should be redeployed to the unit. While it will not force you to do this, it is recommended and you can easily track which files have changed in Conductor during programming. Under this deployment, you have the choice again of automatic, forceful update, or force control.ini only. The reason we have automatic as a selection is, of course, if you have a very large show, you may not want to deploy all the files or all the audio files each time. Once again, if you do force a full update or you force a control.ini file push, it will cause a reboot each time. This is so that the control.ini can be properly scanned and your data processed accordingly. So for deployment, remember that you do have a local deployment folder. This allows you to push and pull directly from configurator or the SD card in Windows. At any time, you can also add additional packages here just by simply creating a new package. So show 3, show 4, and select in between each of these. Notice that they are dependent on the hardware that you have identified and the folder that you have specified for the backup package. This is very powerful if you have a large show across multiple devices or want to manage specific revisions of packages that may have different shows, different languages, or things of this nature. This concludes a tutorial for network deployment on Waggle Configurator and ConductorPro 2.0. For more information, please visit faq.waggle.support.